quite visible that the tourism industry is facing a lot of challenges now. The number of tourists coming here have just started to increase, but due to the pandemic, there's 8% decrease in January and 17% decrease in February. The number of tourists visiting Sri Lanka has come up to 2.3 million, generating $4.3 billion US. Around 5 lakhs of people are depending directly or indirectly from the tourism industry in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, 85% of the people are engaging in tourism who are doing the SMEs. So this tourism industry as a whole is a chain connected to each other. There are a lot of sections linked to this chain, starting from the three-wheel driver who is earning money from tourism to raise the awareness regarding the impact of each section: aviation, hotel and accommodation, travel and the role of DMCs, tour guiding, tourism investments, tourism education and training, and best practices, the strategies and policies that could be practiced in order to uplift it. Herewith I'm having 7 panel members representing each of the Mr. Janith Ameratunga, he is representing the aviation industry. Then Ms. Gayathri Randeni, she is representing the hotel and accommodation sector. Ms. Lashika Vithanage, representing the travel sector. Mr. Nadesh, representing tour guiding sector. Ms. Nilukshi Nanayakkara, representing tourism education and training. And finally, Mr. Himasha members, I welcome all of you to the platform, and I make this an opportunity to welcome all the participants who are here with now. Panel members, as I told you, you will be getting 10 minutes each for your presentations. So, the first speaker of our platform is Mr. Janith Ameratunga. He is a student from Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management, having a vast knowledge by pursuing many studies on airlines industry in London and in Sri Lanka. Janith, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Damsi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us. Before I start my presentation, let me take this opportunity to thank Professor Silva on behalf of all speakers for his guidance and setting this platform for this webinar. So with the limited time I have, I'll be focusing on mainly today on key main areas of the aviation industry and way forward for Sri Lankan Airlines. Especially Sri Lankan airline sector. Aviation has been one of the main pillars of the world economy. As you can see on the slides, it generates economic growth, creates millions of jobs, and facilitates international challenging times. We can see that aviation is playing a vital role, transporting medical supplies and medical staff, repatriating travelers, and most importantly, maintaining the global supply chain. The aviation industry has been completely devastated by COVID-19. We saw direct impacts on airlines, airline manufacturing, and also airports. Indirectly, many service providers who are connected to aviation industry like swimming shop, duty-free, cleaners, transport providers, contractors are all being severely affected. According to International Air Transport Association, industry may lose around $315 billion in revenue, and we have around 95% drop in passenger traffic. And these numbers could change if the second wave of COVID-19 comes, and also if we have to keep most of our aircraft on ground. On a positive note, we saw an end during this pandemic. Looking at Sri Lankan aviation sector, as you are all aware that Sri Lankan Airlines has been struggling in the last couple of years with a debt of over $800 million in the end of March this year. And now with most of its 28 aircrafts on ground, the future looks very challenging for the airline. According to IATA, Sri Lankan Airlines is likely to lose around $715 million in revenue and will have around 58% drop in passenger demand compared to last year. Because of this, over 400,000 jobs are at risk. Moving on to look at to counter COVID-19, as we are aware that we are moving towards an era of touchless travel. The chair areas have announced that it will be using a range of contactless self-service technologies, mainly to increase safety, productivity, and to maximize passenger experience. Delta Airlines, as another example, introduced a virtual feature to promote social focusing on safety in an attempt to boost public confidence and also for future bookings. For example, a smarts on board and also all of the cabin crew will be wearing personal. Another example is Qantas, where their services have been simplified. Like many airlines, they only serve packed meals, and all Qantas and their sister airline Jetstar aircraft are fitted with hospital-grade filters, which they say that it removes 99% of particles, including viruses. And one important thing that I have seen is collaboration, something that we can learn as an industry as well in Sri Lanka, that all stakeholders at this time working together to come out of this crisis. So my recommendations, firstly, as a short-term strategy to Sri Lankan aviation is that we need to be focusing on profitability that ain't making money. For example, Emirates stopped its free Wi-Fi and live TV last week, and also I recommend to operate routes that can make maximum profit, or try to be a regional airline, focusing on Asia and Middle East for the time being. Singapore Airlines, Brussels have cut many of their routes that are making marginal profits. So I think Sri Lankan Airlines also should rethink that about its route map. If low demand is forecast on next 6 to 12 months, we should look at reducing our fleet. Emirates and Qatar Airways are planning to fast track retiring the 380 fleet because of it's too costly to operate, and many airlines are either cancelling or delaying their aircraft orders. As an airline, Sri Lanka Airlines also have quite a few leased aircraft. So if you can come to an agreement with the owners, we could regarding the lease holdings, it could be really beneficial for the airline. On a long term, consolidating or merging will be a really good option. I think I know Sri Lanka Airlines, before even COVID-19, has been trying to merge or to sell the airline. Can you? Yeah. Innovation is another.
Can you hear me? Okay. Innovation is another key aspect that I believe it's very important and adaptable for the unforeseen changes in future. I can guarantee that the COVID-19 will not be the last pandemic or the crisis that we're going to face. And as a recommendation for aviation governing bodies, I think COVID-19 has highlighted many shortcomings of the industry. So many airlines that has been so-called the best airlines within weeks have faced difficulties. So I think we need to rethink how we should manage industry in future. I think my time is up, but before I wind up, I know that will be we will see an aviation industry
and also there will be fewer aircrafts in our skies and fewer airlines will be in business than before.
So finally what I
see is that we will see a leaner aviation industry in future. With that note, I hand it back to Damsi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janith, for sharing your valuable insights regarding the aviation sector with us. You know, Sri Lanka is an island. The only way the tourists can either reach us from the sky or from the sea. So, as we were talking about this aviation sector, why can't we start our strategies from the airport? Why can't we make the Bandaranaike International Airport and health-conscious airport? That is a crucial indicator of the air travel. I think from that measurement, from starting that measurement, we will be able to make sure in our guest mind that Sri Lanka is a secure place for us to travel. And as you told, Janith, the collaboration is really important in this aviation sector. It's not only the aviation sector is going to face this battle, but it has to collaborate with the other sectors of the tourism, and all together they have to face this pandemic as one. And for an example, the Airlines Association with the tourism industry is collaborated with the Bandaranaike International Airport and the Ratmalana, Mattala and the Jaffna International Airports to work together in order to mitigate this situation. For an example, let's presume that we are bringing tourists from the Mattala International Airport. So that location is Hambantota and still not being recognized by the tourists very well. But if we are bringing tourists from the Mattala International Airport, we have the high capability of promoting that area because Hambantota has a huge biodiversity. So why can't we implement strategies like that and go forward? Thank you, Janith, again for sharing your valuable thoughts with us. So moving to our next presentation, we have Ms. Gayathri Randeni, who is a student from Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management and a well-experienced hotelier. Gayathri, over to you.
I think I'm okay now. A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Damsi. A roadmap to recovery and beyond. I'll be representing the hotel and accommodation sector under the umbrella of tourism and hospitality. I'll be taking you through a nice journey with some interesting 6 topics. First, I'll be talking about how important this hotel industry. Then we'll be moving forward the COVID-19 impact on global hotel industry as well as the Sri Lankan hotel industry. Global about the suggestions and the recommendations for the recovery of the hotel sector. So let's begin. As we all know, hotel industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the world. It was started really simply like a small inn, but nowadays it has become a multi-billion-dollar industry, one of the largest and most significant in the world. Hospitality provides, as Damsi said before as in the introduction, 10% of the world GDP and generates over 550 billion revenue annually. So hotel is not a place where we provide the essential services for travelers such as food, lodging, but nowadays it's beyond that. Not only the hotel sector boosts the economy of the country, but also it provides a unique service, helps small and local businesses. Most importantly, it creates thousands of job opportunities. For example, in the next decade, we'll be expecting 72 million new job opportunities which are related in tourism around the world. So isn't it a good news for all of us? So now we'll have a look at what are the COVID-19 impact on the global hotel industry. No event as such has impact on the hospitality industry as greater as this coronavirus did, because it was very sudden, and within the history it came very sudden. So we lost nearly 850 million to 1.1 billion international tourists, lost $901 billion to 1.7 trillion in export revenue from tourism. Also, 100 to 120 million jobs are at a risk right now. Now we'll have a look at what are the impacts in the Sri Lankan hotel industry due to this pandemic. In Sri Lanka, you all know, as you know, we have 39,800 hotel rooms registered with the tourist board. So because of this pandemic, we have a revenue loss of 5 trillion Sri Lankan rupees, and nearly more than 200,000 jobs are at a risk right now, which can be direct or indirect. So we have elaborated more on these topics in our publication. I'll take this opportunity to welcome you, to invite you, have a look at our publication as well. So the moment that we are talking right now, the whole world is in the same battle. Every eye is focused on spreading of this pandemic. So meantime, the world has come up with different ideas, procedures, strategies, guidelines, and also to manage this pandemic until we find a vaccine. The world has found a vaccine. So according to the ongoing researchers, they will say it will take 12 to 16 months to recover this situation. Therefore, hoteliers, we need to make sure we have taken necessary actions and precautions to make sure our system is running smoothly. So we'll have a look at what are the best practices which are happening right now in the industry. And actually it was started in China, but they have successfully managing the problem so far. And it was started during the times of Chinese Spring Festival. Overall, the occupancy is dropped down from 89% and 20% of the hotels were closed. And the hotels, only 20% were open. And the rest of the hotels are like partially closed, either they are totally closed. So moving on, we'll see what are the China. Actually, these are some of the strategies that we have taken, because there are quite a lot of strategies, procedures that the world has taken place. So China, they have come up with the contactless service. That means, you know, our industry is very sensitive and it's easily get vulnerable because we are giving a service to a person to another person. So it's totally a people-based industry. So, but China has come up with a great idea that giving those certain services to the robots, kiosks and apps. So from that, what they have done was to minimize the contamination. That means the physical interaction. So the next one is the provide food delivery process while maintaining the physical reduced or declining the physical interaction. Then the negotiation policy. That means without cancelling any reservation. So it's very smart, and we have to be smart enough to take that reservation into maybe a postpone, so we can have the benefit in the future. So and some more, like for example, if you go to the New Zealand, Singapore, they have come up a strategy for the Tourism Recovery Action Task Force, and New Zealand physical distancing, the food control plan. And as we all do right now, we work from home. It was started and implemented in Japan. And I mean, you can see the simple theory behind this, all the strategies is physical distancing, because this is a pandemic which is spreading a person to another person by the physical interaction. So in life also, it's not only applicable for an industry. In life also, when we are having something, when we are doing something, there will be a lot of challenges. So we're moving on to what are the challenges that we are facing right now as an industry. So we have the employees and the guests. So there is a tendency that employees can be affected by the guests, and also the guest can be affected by the employees. So it's vice versa. At the meantime, employees are directly working with suppliers, so it can be infected. This virus can be infected by in that way as well. So indirectly, our guest will be affected. Not only that, when we are having an establishment or an accommodation unit, so we have a neighborhood. So we have to make sure, and there will be a challenge from that end as well. So we have to make sure all our neighbors are safe and there won't be any harm from our establishment. So in this sector, the hospitality sector, not like other industries, mainly in our sector, there is a lot of informal sector. If you say, for example, in Sri Lanka, it's more than 60% are informal. That means they are not registered in SLTDA or the government bodies. So I think it's a great privilege, and it's going to be the best time that we can promote and show them the benefits and start interacting them to be registered in these government bodies. The meantime, the government organizations will also give the rules, regulations, guidelines, and for near future, there will be kind of a certification that you have to take kind of the coronavirus free. So before you plan your travel, you have to show, before you apply the visa, or by the time you are planning your trip, you have to show your accommodation plan. So for that, you have to show what are the hotels that you are going to stay. So those hotels has to be the coronavirus free certified hotels. So hoteliers, so we have to be ready to have these, get ready to have these guidelines and the standards in our hotels as well to standardize or have to these certifications. So moving on, this is the most important area in my presentation. So these are the suggestions and the recommendations that I'm planning to give it to you. So I have segmented it in 3 different. So domestic tourism is the first idea that I would like to give it to all of you, because as you all remember, that during the times of the Easter bomb attack last year, so we were, the bloodstream was given by the domestic to the normal. We managed this lot of marketing to attract the Sri Lankan tourists for our hotels or the accommodation unit. So for that, we have to give some promotions. We have to do a lot of marketing to do that. So apart from that, from their point of view, they were also like stuck into their homes for nearly 2 to 3 months. So their depression level, the stress levels can be really high. So I read an article recently, like 1 or 2 days before, in America, they have done a research and saying for 1 out of 4 people, they are willing to travel as soon as these restrictions are over. So it is a good news for us. At the same time, this is the normal scenario in Sri Lanka as well. So actually now the comfortable bed, feather pillow, jacuzzi, beluga, lobster, and expensive. So hygiene will be city standards in our hotels while maintaining the social distancing. So government, it has a huge responsibility, and by the time that I am talking right now, the government is always enforcing a lot of guidelines and the standards that we have to follow as industry. So it's really important. So we're moving on. What are the winter strategies that I'm going to suggest you? As my colleague Janith said, this is not going to finish overnight. Either we have to manage this or we have to live with it. So we have to redesign our food outlets, hotels, restaurants, and homestay units. So because from doing that, we can assure to our guests, we are safe and we can welcome you. So it's going to be the mid-time strategy. So not only that, we can promote some of the destinations like tourism zones. That means Arugambe, Yala, Sigiriya. So we can provide the infrastructure and the facilities to given to these particular areas, and we can promote these areas as individual destinations. So I believe this is going to be the best time as a nation, also as the hotel industry, to rebrand, reposition our industry in a high note. And the next idea is with these restrictions and all these, we feel value for us. We feel proud about our things for being a Sri Lankan. So we thought of kind of a creative idea which is called Be Sri Lankan and by Sri Lankan. So we have to be proud what we have. So we can implement a lot of things to the hotel sector as well. So when it comes to the long-term strategies, apart hotels will be one of a hit. That means the people will enjoy food. If they want to wash their own clothes, we can give them laundry facility and a personalized butler or server, private driver. So from that, we made them feel comfortable and enjoy feel them comfortable and safe and hygiene during their stay. At the meantime, we'll be continuing our industry. So we always can merge apart hotels with the medical tourism, agro-tourism, wellness tourism, and the concept of cleanliness, greenness, and wellness. So the next suggestion that I would like to say is the medical tourism. You all know, no one will bargain for the medicine. So since we've been famous for our health and security system, so this is the best time that we can start our medical tourism. So, and moreover, when the person is traveling with the medical purposes, there will be a person or two will be accompanying him or her. So we'll be getting more income than a normal travel. So there is a lot of potential in medical tourism. Moving on, the indigenous medicine, because we will be giving a lot of promote our own medical system that is called indigenous medicine. And we being an island, we are so famous for our seafood. People are craving for the seafood in Sri Lanka and rice and curry. So why not we promote our own and we can indulge with our cuisine in the whole world. So we have come to these are my suggestions and recommendations. We have come to the latter for all of you. And don't worry, we will come back strongly. We are getting ready to welcome you with the same warm smile to our hotel soon. Luxury, hygienic, safe, authentic, and passionate hospitality. Thank you so much. Over to you, Damsi.
Thank you, Gayathri. Yes, as you said, currently the hotel sector has to face a lot of challenges because of this pandemic. Though we say that the hotels are closed, literally they are not, because of the continuous maintenance that has to be done. The air conditioning, swimming pools, rooms, etc. all should be maintained continuously. So the hotel sector, it's more expenses and no revenue. If they have to literally close down the hotels right now, when they have to reopen it, they will have to more maintenance cost undoubtedly. So tackling these kind of problems and feeding the employees has become quite a pickle in the hotel and accommodation sector. But as you said, we can't stay like this. We have to get up. So as you told, we can bring out things forward, be Sri Lankan and by Sri Lankan. We can have truly authentic Sri Lankan things like Ayurveda, agriculture, and try to bring a whole new experience to the guest. We can implement programs like to increase the immunity and then bring our authentic food and beverages forward. The ultimate focus of the tourists in the future who will be traveling after this pandemic will be the cleanliness, greenness, and the wellness. So, practicing the hygienic measurements continuously in our hotel and accommodation sector in order to make sure about the safety about our guests will be a huge step for us. The safety measurements should be implemented from the doorman until the person stays in the hotel and check out. Why can't we start implementing? Why can't we start thinking about strategies like this now? So when in the future, let's say in the 4 months, 5 months time, the tourist starts coming. So when the tourist starts coming, we will be always ready to accept them in our destination, in our accommodation sectors, in our hotels, and then from that we are able to create an assurance in their minds about our accommodations. So that is really important. We always have to make them secure about our accommodation establishments. So as you told, Gayathri, it is really practical if we can practice the concepts like apartment hotels, which is really safe in a situation right now. So thank you, Gayathri. Thank you again for sharing your valuable insight with us. We will be focusing next on the traveling sector. We have Ms. Lashika Vithanage here with us. She's a student from Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management and an expert in the traveling industry. Lashika, over to you.
Thank you, Damsi. Good afternoon to all of you. Having heard about the impact caused to airline and hotel industry by the current pandemic, next I will move on to the travel sector, highlighting the local DMCs. It is well understood by the whole world that the travel industry is among the most affected industries and facing an enormous outbreak due to COVID-19. A proportion from the international tourist arrivals, which handles by the DMCs, results to be one of the hardest hit, which implies a global economic shock. As we understood by our learnings, the similar situation which global travel industry faces is experiencing by the local DMCs as well. At the moment, the global travel industry is experiencing a humongous number of booking cancellations due to various reasons, such as the most attractions are closed for visitors right now and imposed travel bans and restrictions, and mainly because of the closure of the international airports. As you can see in my shared slide, the first graph shows the average booking decline. In March, it was 65%, and by end of the April, the booking decline has increased to 76% according to the research findings. Most probably by now, we predict it might have increased up to 85%. When we turn into the revenue loss, as you see in my graph too, 28% of the operators are at risk of closing their businesses within the 3 months of time, and there will be 46% down within 6 months. A majority of operators, nearly 2 in 3, maybe. When we look at the job loss, it is understood by the research studies again, the tourism is the population. According to my graph 3, in the shared screen, now you can see it's around 64 million job loss in the Asia Pacific region, which is highest among in globe. When we talk about the small and medium scale enterprises, which are known as the SMEs, it is understood the concentration of SMEs in tourism industry is much higher than the other industries. According to the arrival in destination voice, they reveal 86% of operators generated less than US dollars 250,000 in sales in 2019, which implies small businesses could be hit the hardest. We as DMCs are struggling to survive at the moment and facing many challenges, as you see in my screen. Some challenges that we are facing is like paying staff salaries, paying loans, lease and hire purchases, paying off office rent, the cost of maintenance, and especially in terminating the employees where it is necessary. By now we have already understood our challenges, and facing by the DMCs, and now we'll have a look at what are the global best practices to overcome these challenges. In my slide, the slide that I've shared, you can see now I have taken Hong Kong, Netherlands, China, and Thailand as best practices. It reveals that they are using different strategies to win the situation by being a great example to all the DMCs. Especially China and Thailand are focusing to attract the domestic market to be handled by the DMCs. And also China and Hong Kong are practicing different techniques such as using QR codes to check their travelers' health status. And Hong Kong is using a tracking bracelet for their travelers to track their travelers. For the moment, China is encouraging their intra-regional travelers besides domestic market to minimize the long-distance travel hassles. This method is also adopting by Netherlands and Germany while facing the pandemic. Hong Kong is giving helping hands to the registered travel agents with financial benefits. They offer these benefits specially raised by themselves by organizing around 1,350 events. Hong Kong was able to do this with no hesitation because their formal sector is very strong. Having talked about the challenges and best practices, I would like to move on to the recommendations and the strategies. When we follow strategies and the recommendations to win this pandemic situation, we have to mainly consider two different situations. I would like to emphasize here our recommendations are specially to survive in the market short term and to continue being in the industry in long term for DMCs. In the first condition, we assume that if the scientists have found a vaccine for the virus, then we have to take immediate action collectively to cater back to the incoming unpredictable tourist traffic. To handle this situation, we should be trained and well informative, especially to deal with the tourists with different mindsets and behaviors while taking suitable health measures. The second situation is to go forward by adapting to the existing pandemic situation. In this scenario, first we have to empower our human resource according to the health and safety standards, and then to utilize the new strategies by identifying our opportunities. Hence, it is clear that we go forward our recommendations with these very two clear situations, such as if a vaccine found out for the virus, or to go forward adapting to the current pandemic situation. Here, we strongly recommend to go forward with adapting to the current situation according to the recent statement issued by the World Health Organization that the COVID-19 will be in place throughout and there will be no prediction for an end date. When we consider the current status of the industry and the above two special situations, we can suggest few recommendations to the DMCs to cover this pandemic. In this scenario, first of all, we have to look at the way for our, firstly to see our own survival, and then how can we survive as a market, and then to survive as a destination. First, I'll talk about the self-survival. When it comes to our own survival, we have to grab the opportunities, accepting the reliefs offered by the Sri Lankan government, such as waiving off the value-added taxes, withholding taxes on salary, and obtain low-interest loan schemes and turn our challenges into the strengths. At the moment, the government is offering their direct relief packages only for the formal sector. In Sri Lanka, the informal sector is larger than the formal sector in travel industry, which has been given so many issues throughout decades. Hence, according to the lessons learned from Easter attack and COVID-19, we strongly recommend the informal sector DMCs to come forward to get your legal affiliation without further delay. It will help the regulatory body to streamline the industry in taking future decisions for the betterment of the whole travel industry. In return, you will enjoy the ultimate benefits. Secondly, we suggest to concentrate on reducing the overhead cost. There we mean to control the unnecessary expenses, but it is in the possible way, but keeping in line your company standards. That is something where we would like to highlight, because if you are going to reduce your overheads, cutting your company standard, that will not very advisable. And then while you take decisions with regard to employees' working patterns, we suggest you to be very diplomatic and also to be systematic. Otherwise, you might lose your best employee by a small mistake, and you will face difficult situations to find such an employee who is well adapted to your company culture and results you to invest on training new staff once the situation gets better. Then you can take actions, concerning to adapt to work from the home culture and to work on roster basis with a cutoff of a fair percentage from the employee's salary. Again, special situations such as you are pressurized to terminate the service of an employee, we strongly recommend you to make sure you do it wisely with a proper analysis, because this could be the hardest and the most emotional decision you could ever take due to this pandemic. And when we move on to the market survival, we suggest you to maintain the constant communication with your foreign tour operators and with other stakeholders in the industry, such as hotels, attractions, and activity providers, and mainly with the tour guides. Polite and friendly communication is recommended as a must to bridge the industry stakeholders to go forward with the current cycle. Again, as many other countries, including Germany and Netherlands practice, we recommend the local DMCs to motivate the travelers to reschedule their tours or to book for a future date without cancelling their trips. As UNWTO given their taglines according to this current situation, stay home today and travel tomorrow. You can use same kind of promotional materials to encourage the travelers to postpone their tours without cancelling. Then again, we highly recommend you to focus on attracting the intra-regional travelers, as long-haul traveling has become an unsecured situation to the travelers right now. This method is also practicing by China and UAE and most other European DMCs. When we move on to the authenticity of Sri Lankans, as we are aware, we have a big potential in stimulating authentic tour products to emphasize our Helavedakama, Ayurveda, wellness tourism, and meditation. Here we strongly suggest our DMCs to design their travel packages, including our traditional values such as Helavedakama, Ayurveda, and spiritual tourism. There we again and again recommend all the DMCs to follow the standards of our authenticity without destroying the core values. We have to understand the risk of emphasizing the products such as local spas, local massage centers to the tourists, as it may tarnish your DMC value as well as the destination value. Hence, we suggest you to guide your travelers to consult the specialists who are specialized in our authentic product to maintain the quality of it, which will result you to have a qualitative tour product for your own travelers. When we move on to the destination survival, being Sri Lanka as a global best practice due to the way that the Sri Lankan government handled the current COVID-19 situation, we have to understand that we have the best potential among the competitive destinations in the region. Hence, we recommend you to conduct the research to find out how to be very competitive among the region and use the same research findings to reposition our destination in the global market. There we have to concern the TRP, known as the Tourism Resilient Plan, for a long-term survival which will benefit the all industry stakeholders as well as the Sri Lankan economy. Finally, I would like to emphasize that this is not the only disaster that the whole globe was faced. If you remember, in 2003, the world faced SARS virus and again a great economic shock in 2008. But still we overcame those disasters through it was a hard journey. The most important is that you must have a long-term financial management plan for the industry and for the individual DMCs. With our appreciation, we have clearly evident that the current leadership of the Sri Lanka Tourism, especially Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, known as SLTDA, presently doing their utmost effort to recover and resilience of the Sri Lankan travel industry with a long-term vision and plan. Having said that, we invite all our local DMCs to be positive on the current situation and to be enriched with current global trends, leaving industry malpractices to bring Sri Lanka travel industry into heights by repositioning our destination. Thank you. Damsi, over to you.
Thank you, Lashika. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. I would like to add some more points to what you have just mentioned. 95% of the tourism businesses depending on the traveling of the tourists. If the people are unable to travel, the businesses stay still, which is the current scenario. So in order to overcome that, we have to do proper marketing and promotions and keep Sri Lanka on the tourism map. Though we are in a crisis situation now, we have to make sure to keep our country alive in the minds of the tourists by doing advertisements, etc. There's a video clip released quite recently about Sri Lanka, and that is Sri Lanka is the most generous country. A tourist has filmed it from his phone and that went virally. The reason behind this is our people treating 14 tourists who were in Alla area for free of charge. So straight away, our community have good impression about their hospitality. That is our true value. It is highly spoken about the hospitality of the Sri Lankan people. So it is a huge advantage us. So likewise, we have to implement strategies to promote our destination, to create an impression and which is not forgettable in the mindsets of the tourists. As you told, Rashika, the World Health Organization has stated that we might have to live with this pandemic. So we can take measurements in order to promote domestic tourism. Sri Lanka is a country who is depending on the tourism. Tourism is the third largest foreign exchange earner to this country. So we can't stay 2 or 3 years until the international tourists are coming to our destination. We have to have strategies in order to start our business. So why can't we focus on the domestic tourism more? So we can take measurements in order to promote domestic tourism, and the tourism destination management companies can create tour itineraries for them. There are around 2 million of people, domestic tourists in Sri Lanka, and around 1 million are traveling abroad. So if we can focus on these 3 million, we can do something new. We can come up with new strategies in order to bring our tourism to this country. I think our banking sector can help us with this thing. Earlier, we had some measurements like giving discounts and then promotions by various banks to our accommodation sector. Maybe we might be able to implement a plan with the help of the government, with the banking sector and then the DMCs, and create something in order to come out of this situation. Thank you, Lashika, again for sharing your thoughts with us. So moving to our next presentation, we have Mr. Nadesh representing the tour guiding sector. He is a student from Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management, and who has pursued some studies in tour guiding. Nadesh, over to you.
Our course coordinator, Professor Suranga Silva, and our lecturers, senior mentors, and my dear colleagues, those who work hard to create this platform to us. I'm here to discuss on behalf of professional tour guides, as moderator mentioned. My discussion is divided as 5 parts for the easy understanding, and it's explaining briefly below. The first part is talking about the importance of tour guides in the tourism industry. And the second part is saying about the global impact of COVID-19 on then the third impact, the fourth part is referring about the global best practices against COVID-19 pandemic on tour guiding sector. And the last one, I think this is a very important one to us. It's talking about the suggestion and recommendation for Sri Lanka tour guiding. We need to understand the importance of our tour guides. As we all know, the tour guide is a person who stay with tourists since their arrival to departure in a particular place, with different category like national tour guide, surfer guide, regional guide, and site guide as well. Since the tourists need to have clear picture of the country, its offering, laws, rules and regulation, and other expect behavioral patterns. Moreover, tourist guide is have ability to transform the tourist visit in unforgettable experience. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has smashed and brought them into their knee, like other industry, what my colleague mentioned. The recent update of United Nations World Tourism Organization and World Tourism and Travel Council, they're referring that the international tourist arrival will drop about 30% to 40% in 2020. It's about 290 million to 440 million in figure. Therefore, about 50 million of jobs, both in travel and tourism, may be at risk due to this pandemic with lockdown cities, travel ban, closed destination, and rules and regulation, restriction of the government on the movement. So, the tour guide is the community must be mostly affected due to this pandemic as they working only with tourists. The recent update of World Federation of Tour Guides Association say that there are 1.5 million tour guides are in their home with doing nothing. Just think about a minute the situation, how they are surviving. It's very difficult to them because as the tour guide is not receiving any kind of compensation from any company. Since this moment, I'm going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on Sri Lankan tour guiding sector. The recent update of Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority says that the international tourist arrival to Sri Lanka dropped greater than 30% in the first 3 months of 2020, and there are more than 5,000 guides. They are in their home with doing nothing. The figures what I mentioned above, those guides are registered under the Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority, but more than 5,000 guides still they are in silent mode because they are not registered. Just think about the total number of guides, both registered and unregistered. About more than 10,000 tour guides are still there. Moreover, the 10th of March 2020, when the first COVID-19 patient identified from Sri Lanka, the tour guides community totally affected in various ways. They face a lot of problems due to this COVID-19 pandemic, such as economic problems, social problem, psychosocial problem, social problem. We cannot imagine that what kind of problem they are facing. In this case, there's a requirements to rising to recover from this pandemic as a community, as an industry. So, in globally, there are some countries, they are practicing best practices to recover from the pandemic. China, Germany, UAE, Iceland, Singapore, New Zealand, and Australia, they are practicing some best practices to recover from the pandemic. The first practices that is has taken by the countries, promotion of domestic tourism and creating more opportunity to the tour guides. As my colleague Mr. Janith mentioned, all airports are closed and the aviation sector in the flat down. So this is a chance to promote the domestic tourism. So United Arab Emirates, China, promoting domestic tourism in their region and creating opportunity to the tour guides. And the other best practice, if we look about the Singapore and Iceland, it's based on the economical level. Provision of economic relief assistance for tour guides. The Singapore government has waived the renewal fees of tour guides for 2020. And also, Singapore government announced that all tour guide has the right to have personal loan. And if you consider about the Iceland in Europe, as we know, Iceland in Europe, they have enough revenue to assist the tour guides or any sector with money. The Iceland government said that all tour guides are entitled to receive unemployment benefit about 120 euro per month. On other hand, some countries are doing engaging the tour guides with online application. kind of things because they have adequate time to listen others. They have adequate time to speak with others. They have adequate time to realize the mistake what they did. They have the adequate time to realize what they have promoted grandparents' life. So this kind of training much appreciated. Then the next accommodation is talking about a specific relief package for tour guides. It's saying that self-isolation period also covered with a particular trip and payment. For example, if a tour guide has 2 trips a month, each 12 days, there are 6 days there. So that 6 days should be with paid leave from the company or from the private or public sector. The last recommendation from my side, an annual salary increment scheme should be initiated for tour guide based on their performance. This is the most important one, I think, because a tour guide who got that driving license, tour guide license on 90 up to now, maybe the salary scale is same. So if you promote them by increasing their salary scale, we can get additional yield from them. Therefore, I am requesting to the government and private sector like Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority, Sri Lankan National Tour Guide Association, Sri Lankan Surfer Guide Association, and a Provincial Tourism Bureau could use our finding for the policy implementation and strategic development. I think it's the time to conclude my presentation on behalf of professional tour guides. Hence, we are calling to you to make your travels memorable with endless local experience. Thank you for listening. Damsi?
Thank you, Nadesh, for sharing your thoughts with us. As you brought out, there's a huge crisis situation occurred to our tour guides because of this pandemic. There are around 5,400 tour guides in our country, and currently there is no income source for them. And there are an opportunity to improve themselves, maybe learn a new language or improve the language that they are practicing in the industry, improve their presenting skills, learn about the attractions in our country and the historical values, and then do training programs for the community, like, do the language classes for the children in our community, and then you might be able to earn something out of it. Then as you mentioned, and as I have mentioned in the previous slide, that we can start thinking about our domestic tourism in this time period. So, as you told, Nadesh, yes, we can use our tour guides with the domestic tourism. So, by that, the tour guides will ultimately can earn something out of it. So, for an example, let's say Sigiri. So, if we can allocate one tour guide and then 6 domestic tourists with him, I think we can do something likewise. So, thank you, Nadesh. Thank you again for sharing your insights with us. And next, we are moving to the tourism, education, and the training sector. I'm having Nilukshi with me. She's a student from Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management, and an academic working in a reputed private university in Sri Lanka. Nilukshi, over to you.
Thank you, Damsi. I'm representing tourism, education, and training sector. As we all aware, global-wise, most of the countries at the different point in their COVID-19 infection rates. Therefore, currently more than 1.2 billion learners from 186 countries are affected. So, most of the government around the world have temporarily closed down their education institution as an attempt to control the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. compared to the other tourism segmentation. At the moment, the impact of COVID-19 into tourism training and education is invisible, but it will be creating more challenges to the industry in near future. Since tourism education plays a major role in preparing students to gain professional and practical skills required by the tourism industry. Not only that, tourism education is a labor-intensive sector. Practical training is very much necessary for the student to find the opportunity and to apply what they have learned into practice and to develop personal skills and abilities. But with this current pandemic situation has created major challenges in tourism education and training. When we move to the key challenges in tourism education and training at global level due to COVID-19, we can identify a few points as what are the challenges have been imposed in tourism education and training due to the impact of COVID-19. As a first point, change of traditional physical classroom to online classroom has imposed a greater challenge to both the educators as well to the learners, as traditional educators find it difficult to teach via online due to the poor accessibility and adaptability for the online education system. As second point, as many people have become unemployed due to this pandemic situation, hence eventually it has led to the reduction and involvement of the student in tourism, education and training, while countries at global level striving with this situation. The current investing in the tourism and tourism-related education and training will stop their involvement in tourism sector, which may result in the abandoning of tourism education for a few years due to insufficient financial support and lesser tourism operation like new properties or new project in the country. When we move to the next slide, COVID-19 impact on Sri Lanka tourism education and training. However, COVID-19 has become a reason to educational institutions in Sri Lanka have to search for innovative solutions in a relatively short period of time. In a matter of weeks, coronavirus has changed how students are educated around the world. As a result, in Sri Lanka, risk control decisions have led thousands of students into the temporary learning at home situation. Accessibility and the adaptability issues for the online education system. When we come to that issue, overall computer literacy reported percentage is in first half of 2018 for Sri Lanka is 27.5. When it comes to online education as a common problem, students in e-learning system facing issues such as adaptability struggles, technical issues, computer literacy issues, time management issues, and self-motivation issues, and which they need to be solved throughout proper initiative for the students' future benefit. When it comes to the tourism industry decline, in 2019, Sri Lanka tourism industry was badly affected due to the Easter Sunday attack, and when it comes to 2020, SLTDA monthly report outlined that 71,000 tourists for March 2020, a drop by 70.8% when compared to the March 2019 as a result of continuous decline of tourism industry. Freshers are showing lack of interest to join with tourism industry, and due to the low demand and high turnover for the tourism industry employment. Due to the lack of training opportunities, service quality issues can be occurred. When we move to the global best practices on tourism education and training against the impact of COVID-19. The global best practices related to the education can be adopted for the proper tourism academic development. There are impressive strategies for several countries and the academic institutions that they use to manage this crisis situation. Most governments have been positioning solution of the online learning and the provisioning education remote with the devices at home. According to UNESCO, 9.8 million African students are experiencing disruption in their studies due to the closure of higher education institutions. In China, the Ministry of Education has assembled a group of divers to develop a new cloud-based online learning and the broadcasting platform, as well as to the updated suite of education infrastructure. 1.2 million Chinese got access to learning material throughout live television broadcast, from live broadcast to the education influence to virtual reality experience. When we come to the Africa, public university of South Africa and the private universities such as Ashu University in Ghana are offering data bundle to their students and the staff. Increasingly, universities are partnering with the internet providers and government to overcome this critical challenge by negotiating zero-rated access to the specific educational and information website, as in the case of Rwanda, South Africa, and Tunisia. Moving to the next slide. We can categorize some of worldwide distance learning solution practices such as Zoom. Zoom has become the child of COVID-19 solution in the surging during this crisis. In March, Zoom reported 200 million daily users. Up to come to the Tourism Education and Training, Front Cooking School Australia, and Swiss Hotel Management School Switzerland are using Zoom technology to deliver their theoretical lesson to their students and completing assessment using Blackboard system and etc. Even though globally all the tourism education and training institutions are covering their theory sessions, still struggling to manage practical session and internship program for their students with these social distance issues, since still no proper solution found out for the internship programs and the practical session. When we move into the COVID-19 impact on Sri Lanka tourism, education and training. In just the past few weeks, the learning companionship taking shape with the diverse stakeholders, including governments, education professionals, technology providers, and the telecommunication network operators coming together to utilize digital platform as a temporary solution to the pandemic situation. There have already been successful transition amongst many state universities and tourism training providers in Sri Lanka, such as Department of Economic, University of Colombo, managed to get their program to online just within 2 weeks. To continue tourism studies during the pandemic situation, students in SLI-THM started to learn at home in April 2020 via Google Classrooms. Using Google Classrooms, students can download their notes, presentation slides, and they're able to ask questions from their lecturers via chat. Similarly, students at private training providers in Sri Lanka, such as William Angus, Australasia Academy of Hospitality, began an investment for online learning to their students. However, there are challenges to overcome. Some students without reliable internet access and or technology seen across provinces and between income distribution and infrastructure such as internet bandwidth issues within Sri Lanka. To sort out these matters, we can move to the recommendation. To control spread COVID-19 virus, social distance is essential. Therefore, group of lecturers cannot hold in Tourism Education Institute. On the other hand, tourism and hospitality courses consist more than 70% practical training. Since Sri Lanka is a developing country, sudden technological transformation on education system will not be practically implemented, some extended at the initial stage. Therefore, tourism education has limitations, considering every sensitive factors in advance of the implementation of the strategies. Short-term strategies. We can move to the short. Need assessment should be conducted to realize the current situation in the country throughout the SWOT analysis. This will help identify and the prioritize of the factors to be addressed. Second point, introduce resilience strategy for the tourism academic sector. New resilience strategies must be planned for the challenge and recover the current situation of industry throughout education and training. We can propose start professional improvement programs, introduce strategy to participate research and development for the students and trainees, sustainability of the environment pollution recovery automatically under the situation, and solid mechanism should be created to maintain environment situation throughout education and training. Example, resilience tourism resort with the quarantine or alternative must be started urgently. Next point. Strength integration between actors and the agencies of the tourism industry. Change education and training format. Introduce virtual platform to the lecturers, students, and all trainees throughout advanced technology. Accelerate education and training during this period because of this time is the most convenient for the education. Other point, increase education and training technology development. When we move to the midterm strategies, when it comes to the midterm strategies, the first attention need to pay on the fruitful syllabus revision. Throughout all the institutions and the universities which are enrolling with tourism and hospitality education in Sri Lanka, considering the degree of the uncertainty and the sensitivity of the industry. They are the subject of the occupational health and safety, crisis management, risk management, disaster management, and food hygiene. Information technology, etc. need to be added by the identifying new trends and considering the nature of the subject. Furthermore, education infrastructure should be well established, giving priority for the networking such as internet, Wi-Fi, covering all over the Sri Lanka to identify a successful platform for the online education. The knowledge of IT literacy should be increased by adding as a compulsory subject for the tourism and hospitality education. When we consider the long-term strategies, first point is manpower distribution to the tourism value chain. Still, we did not have concern about holistic view of tourism. Human resources such as students are trained and recruited for the accommodation sector and travel agency. But tourism value chain is not only the accommodation sector. It includes attraction, amenities, activities, accessibility, and etc. Skilled human resources must be essential to recruit for the whole value chain. Therefore, we have to plan qualified human development to distribute skilled manpower for the tourism value chain throughout education and training. Example, we can give tourism media, tourism journalist, such as first gap should be found shortly and plan it long term. Second point is manpower development policy. There was tourism employee mobility before the COVID-19 pandemic started. Number of employees work domestic and international tourism sector, but they won't like to work out of the country further due to this situation. Internal employee competition will be high and the innovative employees might get opportunities in the industry. Therefore, multi-skilled, multi-talent entrepreneurs target long-term education should be considered throughout the education. Third point is developing training on the technology for all entrepreneurs to continue service. Fourth point is innovative new tourism strategies. Mass tourism concept will be changed in future until COVID-19 free. Visitors might be found isolated accommodation, independent environment, close destination. Large hotel concept will be neglected for some time. Isolated boutique style hotels and attraction will be demand. Human capital development and new system or segment should be considered by the policy makers. In the presentation, I would like to highlight that future tourism sector will depend on the tourism education and training development. Thank you once again, Professor Dr. Suranga Silva, for this opportunity. And Damsi, it's over to you.
Thank you, Nilukshi. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. I think the teaching about this true value of the Sri Lankan culture, all should start with this tourism education and training, because ultimately these students who are taking the foundation courses of the tourism education from these training and education institutions of tourism will ultimately come to the industry and practice them. So why can't we start to teach about this authenticity, about the true Sri Lankan values to our kids in these institutions? It's not that we are adapting to the westernized culture, but we should practice our things more often. From the beginning of greeting the guest Ayubowan, we should teach our younger generation. They should be taught to love our things. Now, as you told, the Nilukshi, now this issue coming in this education and training sector is not quite visible like the issues coming up in the other sectors of tourism. But it is a major issue that we have to take immediate actions. In the Sri Lankan context, this can be a little challenging and everything. Now the students have got an idea because of this pandemic and everything, how this is impacting on the tourism industry, that is there any advantage of staying in this, learning this subjects now? Will there be a future for us? So these kind of questions are coming to the students' mind. But what we have to remember is, we will find out solutions, we will find out strategies to mitigate this current pandemic, and we will go forward, we will moving forward and leaders for the future of our country. So in context, using these softwares like Zoom, Google Classroom, learning management systems will be a problem, but we can implement strategies with the help of the government and then improve them and then make sure that our students are getting this education properly. Thank you, Nilukshi, again for sharing your valuable insight with us. So we are moving towards the latter part of our session. We are going to talk about the tourism research and innovation. Our speaker is Mr. Ishara Madhusankha, studying in the Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism Economics and Hotel Management, and a researcher of the tourism industry who has already published around 15 research papers. Ishara, over to you.
Thank you, Damsi. So, good evening all. And without taking much time, I will directly move to the field which I'm going to talk today, the action-oriented research for recovery and resilience of Sri Lanka tourism industry. So what is this action-oriented research and why it is important to tourism industry? I believe that I should explain that to you before move further. The action-oriented research in tourism combine the findings and process of research studies with practical work of the industry in a process that provide platform to improve the strategies, practices and knowledge. That strategies, practices and knowledge will empower all stakeholders of the industry to successfully face the challenges or the impact created due to COVID-19. So basically, action-oriented research studies will generate practical solution to the tourism and hospitality industry to recover from COVID-19. In this discussion, I wish to speak on the global best practices of conducting researches on post-COVID-19 tourism development and the actual research requirement of post-COVID-19 tourism development in Sri Lankan context, the most effective and necessary research areas on post-COVID-19 and tourism development in Sri Lanka, and finally, the contribution of action-oriented research on post-COVID-19 recovery and resilience of Sri Lankan tourism. So let's move to the global practices related to research studies in tourism development. When it comes to the global scenario, we should analyze what are the research studies undergo with World Tourism related organization. In here, we can't forget about responsible organization like World Tourism Organization, International Air Ticketing Academy, and national tourism boards in countries like Vietnam, Singapore, China, Japan, and more. So what are they have mainly focused on in the research studies? They specially focus on health practices in tourism operations, developing tourism after COVID-19, employee-related issues, passenger perception of industry as well as expected traveling behaviors, and the many other tourism industry related research areas. In here, we have to examine that are those research practices which has practiced by globally applicable to Sri Lanka? What are the changes should have to done when it is applicating to Sri Lankan industry? And what are the innovations we has to do with research studies in post-COVID-19 and Sri Lankan tourism development? Let's move to the actual research requirement of stakeholders in Sri Lanka right at the moment. The government need to overcome from economic crisis. They have to find out how they can increase the revenue from tourism industry after COVID-19. Before COVID-19 pandemic, the service industry was the third contributor to the national GDP for years according to the national statistic reports. As a country, we have faced two types of disasters within a year. One is man-made disaster, which happened in April 2019, and another one is COVID-19, which has started the end of the 2019. So how government can overcome this situation? When it comes to the employees, they need to ensure their job. So what happened to the employees in tourism industry with the COVID-19 pandemic? Most of the hotels have shut down their operation for around 3 months. So some employees in the organizations lost their jobs permanently, and some of them are on service break where they are not earning anymore. So as employees who works in the industry, they need to ensure their job as well as their income. And the other thing is, are they okay to work in hotels or any other tourism related organization where they have to contact the tourists who come from the other countries? Especially, you know that in the hotels, we have to do the service with the direct contact of their guest. Next, the entrepreneurs. They need to minimize their losses and restart their businesses. Especially in the SME sector in the country, they are facing many troubles with this situation. They don't have enough cash to pay their salaries to their employees, their rent, or any other business expenses at the moment. So as researchers, what we can do in this situation to empower these tourism entrepreneurs? The host community need to start their normal lifestyle in tourism industry. The contribution of the host community in tourism activities are higher around tourism destination in Sri Lanka. As an example, Kataragama, Dunghinda, Kandy, Nuwareliya, Hikkadu, whatever the area, you can see how the host community engage with the tourists and increase their income. With COVID-19 pandemic, now there are no any single tourists traveling in Sri Lanka for months. So it's reduced the income of host community and they are facing issues. And one of the important factor is, in the other way, host community may have phobia when they see tourists around their destination after this COVID-19 pandemic. So it can identify that there are a number of research needs related to the host community. When it comes to the tourists, they need to be normal. Tourists may need to travel around the world since they are stuck in one place for a long time with COVID-19 pandemic. But are they travel to a destination which is not confirmed the safety of the place? The trainees needs to complete their studies, trainings, and start their career in the field as soon as possible. That is one of most important sector because they are the future of the industry. So they need to finish their education and training, then move to the industry to work. These days, many institutes they start online lectures and education practices via the online. But is that possible to all students? If not, what are the actions we can take to develop country's education? As the Sri Lanka, all students can work with the Google Classroom or the Zoom lecture or any other online platform. If not, what are the things we can do as researchers? Finally, I would like to state some suggestions on research and innovation which need to address in this situation. The potential market to target a new normal situation. As an example, China, we can state, is that China is potential market which can target to Sri Lanka. So the Japan or America, the America is in a critical situation. Are the Americans will able to travel to a country like Sri Lanka? Our industry like to take some or grab some market from the America. We have to identify those things via conducting action-oriented researches. And next, the tourism concept which can promote at this situation. The domestic tourism, solo traveler concept, driver tourism concept, and can be suggested as some suitable tourism concept which can promote at the situation to reduce the risk to the Sri Lankan national economy. So you can do action-oriented research studies on this field to generate some valuable solution to the industry. And we can identify more suitable marketing method in the situation by conducting action-oriented research studies. Should we stick to the traditional marketing or promotional method, or should we move further by using online or other modern technological methods to market ourselves? Is that so Sri Lanka is applicable now or not? If not, what we have to do? Those that should be considered when we are doing action-oriented research regarding this COVID-19 and tourism development. And strategies and policies recover and resilience of Sri Lankan tourism. What type of policies need to implement to safeguard tourists, vendors, SMEs, and all other stakeholders, or stabilize the economy in Sri Lanka? And the action to be taken regulate tourism operation in the COVID-19 pandemic, operational manuals, guidelines to safety and security service, the process of tourism organizations like hotel. When it comes to the service operations, you have to go to the make the tourist, that means host beds, or you have to serve some food to the host, that means your tourists. Then you have to directly touch your tourists, maybe their surfaces. So how these operations can do with the safe manuals? We have to find out what are the most important and practicable solutions in this movement. What are the teaching methods to educate trainees to start their careers in new normal situation? Are the online teaching is practicable to country like Sri Lanka or tourism industry? Because that it has to cover more practical subject when it comes to the hotel education, such as cookery, food and beverage, front office, housekeeping. Those things has to do in practical in the laboratory. If not, that our students will not be a practicable students, so they will not improve their skills. So how we can do those things if we can't use online? So those kind of things we have to find out via action-oriented researches. The possible approaches to rebuild tourism in tourism SMEs. Are they need loans free from taxes and interest for some period of time? Or that can bankers provide those facilities to the SME sector? If not, what we can do? And the action-oriented research should be done to identify possible motivational techniques to improve tourism stakeholders. Positive behavior on challenging COVID-19 development of the industry. Are they physically or mentally fit enough to do the service to the tourist or engage with tourism activities? We have to motivate them. We have to teach them how they can do without getting infected. As many people speak at the moment, one of the most important sector is local suppliers at this pandemic situation. We have to do action-oriented researches on identify the possibility of empowering local tourism supply chain to fulfill the demand of tourism products. Is that supplies producers in Sri Lanka have the capacity to fulfill the industry demand with the quantity as well as the required quality? If not, what can we do as researchers to empower these local supplies? And finally, I would like to speak about the research, conducting researchers. How these research studies can do. It can done with the assistance of the information technology and modern technology devices, because at the moment there is a risk to go into the field to do research studies. So by using those technology, we can conduct our researches and give these ideas to the society as soon as possible. The research study should be practical and generate solution in short term, mid term and long term. The previous speakers has speak more suggestions regarding these the special factors, that mean airlines, tourism industry, hospitality, that mean hotel industry. So those suggestions also can be done with the theoretical background by combining these researchers and their suggestions. So let's contribute to the tourism and hospitality industry through action-oriented researches as academics. And finally, I would like to say that in this situation, the most important requirement from researchers is to use your knowledge, experience, and abilities to conduct action-oriented research studies to overcome the situation by giving the suitable solution to the industry, other than publishing the research work in somewhere and add qualifications to your CV. Thank you. Damsi?
Thank you, Vishnu. So if we are actually able to have proper plans and do action-oriented research with key stakeholders for our entire tourism industry and separately to different sectors, I think we can build practical and then mitigative strategies for our industry, and ultimately we will be able to recover from this pandemic, because these researchers, we conduct our practical outcome results-based researchers. So we have to understand what we require and what we have and what we want in the future to achieve, and then conduct these researches. So thank you, Ishar, again. Next, we are going to talk about the tourism investments. I'm having Mr. Himasha Jayarathne, a student from the Postgraduate Diploma in Tourism, Economics and Hotel Management, and a proud entrepreneur in the industry. Himasha, over to you.
Thank you very much, Damsi, and good evening to everybody. So this is Himasha Jayarathne, and I'm going to talk about tourism investment for resilient and sustainable Sri Lanka tourism. Before I feed with you facts and figures, let's look back. Do you think this is the first time that we hit like this? No. We are the people who used to do tourism with 30 years civil war. We have managed. We did tourism in the other part, but in 2009 we managed. There was a very massive war, but we did tourism. We recovered. We got our country back, and we had a very nice long run, 10 years nice run. Tourism, we were at our peak. We were the #1 destination. We were named as the #1 destination. But in 2019, there's another bitter. These type of things we are used as Sri Lankan, we are used to that. So this is not the first time that we're gonna face this sort of epidemic. So for Sri Lankans, we have done it very nicely. So this time also, for all the people who are, we as a one nation, one country, we will face this pandemic. So my objective is to talk about how we gonna protect our existing entrepreneurs and to motivate and encourage other people to invest in Sri Lanka. So me and my team, we have searched global best practices and distilled the data and identify these are the things that we should implement and follow in order to do. Next slide. You may have a best resident managing, but you need investor. They are the people they put their money to put up buildings and use unseen areas to work. So tourism industry generate direct and indirect employment. Directly and indirectly, over 500,000 people are working in the industry. And it helps to develop infrastructures in local regions. So I will give you some examples. Arugambe, Bentota, Unamatuna, all these places are now developed places because of tourism. And tourism is the third source of foreign currency generated to a country. 4,381 4.9 USD 2018. It's all about, as you can see, the tourism is helping to export also. We export things. It contributes 7%. And for 2018, we estimated as 7 million. Moving to next slide. So you can, by looking at this graph, you can identify the sharp fall in tourist arrival. We are into people-oriented business. What we need customers. All other industries, they can depend on the digitalization and everything. based on the web and everything. But we need people to patronize. We need people to come to our hotels. We need people to travel around our country. So we are doing the people-oriented business. So this chart shows you how this pandemic affect our country. Moving to the next slide. We will talk about the global best practices. We are not the only country hit by this pandemic virus. Most of the country, I can say not all of the country, but the most of the country, they're all suffering from this disease. So Australia, let's see what they have done. No, government is the core producer. Government is supporting, government has to support in each and every country. Most contribute is the government. So in Australia, they have 3.2 billion to protect their investment. Limited 15 money investment incentive. And China, the second example, on 26 March 2023, the virus started in Wuhan. So they were the people who got infected better than everyone. So now they have recovered. Now they are back to normal. So they have started some strategies to retain the investors and bring new people. So they knew if all the investors left the country, nobody's there to give them their people to work. So the government directly involved with this situation and pump some money and try to bring them all of them into one platform and try to treat them in equal manner. Moving to next slide. South Africa, 10.8 million available to tourism relief fund. They have a fund. We should have one. I will talk about it later. And Australia, I mentioned you earlier. And the Chinese government has asked to banks to extend the terms of business loans and commercial land loans to reduce rents. Pakistan, see the Pakistan what have done. They have hired their entrepreneurs, SME sectors, to work for government. They are paying 500 per person, but they used to earn 10,000 rupees per person. Now they are getting half of the salary that they used to earn. But it's okay. They can maintain their regular life with this 500 of their money. They can buy some groceries and everything, so they can survive. And most of the countries, government has extended financial benefits. That's what the government do. They give loans and they do financial support. Moving to next slide. Lesson learned for Sri Lanka tourism. I have listed down some figures. These figures are long last for 12 years. Last 12 years, I expected from the SLTD investment sector. These figures shows how many investors have invested in Sri Lanka and how many we have lost. In the third paragraph, which clearly says only 44% out of the referred projects IR still has been approved. So 66 investors has been refused. 2.1, 21 projects of the pipeline, 50 of them are taking 6 months. And you can see these figures, just go through it, you can identify. So we need to rethink about these programs, and we should be proactive. We should not, until they come to our office, we should go and find these proper investors. So moving to next slide. This is the most important. This is the core of my presentation. What we can do. Lesson learned for Sri Lanka tourism. I will explain one by one because this is very important. First thing is, as my colleagues pointed out, diversifying tourism to avoid dependence on the single activity or market. I will give you a fine example. Say, some of the foreigners have invested in villas in our southern parts, beach and everything. So they are catering to a particular market, Europe market, in the American market or Far East. So this is the time they should open their doors for the very sensitive industry. So what if we not totally depend on foreign tourists, but if our people traveling, imagine Colombo or Goa or in Kandy, if we started to travel from Colombo to Jaffna or to Kandy, and we have tourism, so we can depend on that also. Investing in data intelligence to monitor behavior, anticipate trends, and adjust product design and market. This is very important. We should invest in data. So now we are in a question. So in that case, we should anticipate. So we should be ready for that. And for the investors, new investors, 5 years water, electricity, and our government should be price. Immediate cost, electricity cost, and the government supplies as well. So we will be very happy with that. And the not that will for 22 hours. Whoever come up with the project proposal within 24 hours, we should be able to tell them whether this can be done or can't be done. So they will be moving to next step. Encouraged to invest through share market. So in this case, nobody will share their own burden. I mean, if a solo investor come here and invest his whole money and face this sort of pandemic, there's a high potential that they will face disaster. So if they invest through share market, that will be good for them and for the country also. And financial, non-financial guidance support from the government and the approval for the if the proper thank you.
Yes, thank you, Himasha, for sharing your insights with us. So I would like to add some more points to what you said. This tourism investors are the most decisive people in both as well. What to have to make sure demand, because investing won't have a future in our country. So I guess there should be a huge, the banking sector has to understand this from, because of these investors investing money in their banks. For an example, let's take a rural area. So if there's a development in tourism, the money for the employees will be going to this bank and to the sourcement in a loan schemes with lenient terms and conditions, etc. So thank you, Himasha, again for sharing your insights. And since there was a technical issue in the first presentation regarding the aviation sector, we thought to redo it for your benefit. So Janith is ready here to do a preview regarding the aviation sector. Janith, over to you.
Thank you, Damsi. I have changed the location and the network. Hopefully, you're going to hear me loud and clear now. So the aviation has been one of the main pillars of the world economy, and it generates economic growth, create millions of jobs, and facilitate international trade and tourism. So even during these challenging times, we can see that aviation is playing a vital role, mainly in transporting medical supplies, repatriating travelers that we have seen in Sri Lanka, and most importantly, maintaining a global supply chain. Aviation industry has been completely devastated by COVID-19. We saw direct and indirect impacts on the aviation sector. Directly, we saw through airlines, airline manufacturing, airports, And indirectly, we saw all service providers who are connected to aviation, likes of souvenir shops, duty-free, cleaners, transport providers, and contractors, all been severely affected. According to International Air Transport Association, industry may lose around $315 billion in revenue, and will have around 95% drop in passenger traffic. On a positive note, we saw that an increase in business aviation and also in air cargo during this pandemic. Moving on to Sri Lankan airline sector, as you know, Sri Lanka has been struggling for the last couple of years, and with a debt of around over $800 million at the end of March this year, and with now most of its 28 aircrafts on ground, the Sri Lankan aviation sector is facing huge challenges in future. According to IATA, Sri Lankan Airlines is likely to lose around $715 million in revenue, and will have around 58% drop in passenger demand. Due to this, they say that maybe around 400,000 jobs will be at a risk. So if you look at some of the industry best practices that has been taken to counter the COVID-19, as we are moving to an era of touchless travel, Etihad has announced that it will be using a range of contactless self-service technologies, mainly to increase safety, productivity, and to maximize passenger experience. Delta Airlines, another airline that have introduced a virtual queuing platform to promote social distancing. So also we also can see that most airlines are focusing on safety in an attempt to boost public confidence for their future bookings. For example, you can take Qatar Airways, which is introducing mandatory face masks on board, and also all of their cabin crew will be wearing PPEs or the personal protective equipment during service. As services have been simplified, that they're going to only serve packed meals, and also that is to minimize touch points. And one other important thing I want to mention is that collaboration that we see among all stakeholders that are working hard together to come out of this crisis. I think something really important, and something that we can learn from them as well as industry. So quickly going to my recommendations. Most importantly, firstly, as a short-term strategy, I recommend that we need to be focused on profitability, and that means reducing any service or product that isn't making money. And for example, Emirates have decided to stop free Wi-Fi, free TV on all of their aircrafts from last week. And also, I think if we can operate only, try to be a regional airline, focusing mainly on Asia and Middle East. Examples are Singapore Airlines, Brussels Air. Both have cut down many routes that are making marginal profits. So I think Sri Lankan Airlines also have to rethink about the route map. On midterm, I think with the very low demand forecast for next 6 to 12 months, we should look at reducing our fleet. Many airlines, for example, Emirates, Qatar, are fast-tracking retiring their A380 fleet because they feel that it's too costly to operate. And also, many airlines also are either cancelling or delaying their aircraft orders. And since we have quite a few leased aircraft, if we can come to an agreement with owners that could really benefit the airline. On a long term, I think consolidating or the merging, I know the airline has been trying even before the COVID-19 to merge or to sell the airline, part of the airline. But we had to be very open-minded in future as well, because that will be the way forward. And the other aspect, another important thing I want to mention is innovation. I think industry has to be adaptable for unforeseen changes in future. So investing on innovation is very important, because I can guarantee you COVID-19 won't be the last of the pandemics or the crisis we're going to see. And for all the main airline governing bodies, I have to tell that COVID-19 has highlighted many shortcomings of the aviation industry, as so-called many bigger airlines, best airlines who had the biggest fleet, biggest jumbo jets, have all faced major difficulties within weeks of this pandemic. So I think we need to rethink how we should manage our industry in future. So quickly to finish off, I know that we will overcome this crisis like we did 9/11, SARS virus in 2003 and in 2008 economic crisis. But we will see a smaller aviation industry, and we will see very few aircrafts in our skies, and few airlines will be in business after COVID-19. And so we will see an airline industry that is leaner and meaner in future. Thank you, Damsi.
Thank you, Janith, for sharing your thoughts with us again. So just to inform you all, we will be launching a publication regarding the post-COVID-19 and Sri Lanka tourism development in the near future, and we hope to give it to your hands. So we have come to the end of our panel discussion, post-COVID-19 and Sri Lanka tourism development under the themes of resilience, recovery, reality of emergent and research. I hope all who were listening to us got a fair insight how to mitigate the problems that we are currently having in each sector, and I hope we provided you the answers for the questions you have raised as well. You know, once an economist, Vijay Ghani, said that Sri Lanka is God. Whatever the situation we have to face, though how hard it is, we have always won the battles. True, we are going through some hardships now in our industry, but I'm pretty sure with the great determination and motivation of our people, we will overcome this. Let's build a plan for the country. Let's change our theme of sun, sea and sand and go beyond these concepts like be Sri Lankan and by Sri Lankan. Let's have a standard operating procedure for our entire tourism industry. Let's go forward as a nation to break these barriers, not as individuals yearning for profits, but as one country. And let's show who we are, what are our true colors. We have to always think positively, because a negative mindset in this industry won't take you anywhere. I just got caught of a nice phrase regarding our tourism by one of our tourism leaders very recently. Tourism is dream selling. What we do right now is invisible exports. We create dreams in the mindsets of the tourists before they come here, and after their arrival, we make those dreams come true. Sri Lanka is good at this because of the diversified experiences that the country has to offer. But let's think outside of the box, beyond these experiences, and create some new, authentic experiences from nowhere in the world they are able to grab, but only from Sri Lanka. So with that note, I would like to wind up our program. Thank you so much for those who were listening to us for the past 2 hours. And thank you, Professor Dr. Suranga Silva, for creating us the opportunity. And finally, thank you all the panel members. I would like to mention this point today. Our panel members reached you by being in different parts of the country, some from Colombo, then from Jaffna, Kurunegala, and then Market. So if you had to face any disturbances during the program, I would like to, for the participation, have a good day.